Good morning, everybody, and it is now day 3 of my birthday weekend, or week, I don't know. Anyways, that was very silly of me, but thank you for tuning in. I am so honored to have Minji Chang join us on the sheckiiville, and before that, I actually have a little intro, trying to make this a little bit more professional, so hopefully you guys like this.
Yo, what's going on? It's your boy Flow Sick. You're now tuned into Welcome to Sheckiiville, new podcast by Tony Lee. Check in as much as you can, you dig? Peace.
And that was my man Flow Sick, and then from one Korean American to another Korean American, Minji Chang, how are you?
I'm doing great. I've been having so much fun chopping it up with you pre-going live, but yeah, I'm doing good this morning as best as can be, all
Yeah,
things considered.
no, and that's actually something that I wanted to do on this podcast, and even before all this happened, you and I were chatting about like, hey, let's go a little deeper on this and see if you're okay, because like. I think there's important conversations to be had, and right now with everything that's going on right now, and for some reason you were under a rock and haven't heard anything about George Floyd and everything that's going on. The TLDR of that is basically I don't really want to describe it, but I would hope you guys know this or just look it up. So, Minji, I want to open it up to you, but first introduce yourself to give context and who you are, and welcome to sheckiiville.
Thank you. First of all, your name is so, I love the name of your podcast so
Let's
much. I have
go.
to put it out there. I have a funny story about that. I got in trouble for saying Shecky too much when I was little because I didn't know what it fully meant. But yeah, thank you for having me on. My name is Minji Chang. I'm an actor, I'm a producer, and a podcast host. I'm a fledgling entrepreneur and former executive director of collaboration. So, collaboration with a K in the Asian American community. Is kind of like a cornerstone organization and a movement that was really there for the last 20 years, supporting and discovering and connecting Asian American Pacific Islander artists. So I've been part of that organization for 11 years. I stepped down as executive director 2 years ago, but I'm still on the board. So it's kind of like I didn't really leave.
Yeah,
But yeah, we just had our Empower conference. I've been wearing this shirt
yeah,
everywhere, but that's been the bulk of my life is arts, business, and creative entrepreneurship, if you
yeah.
will, and
No.
advocacy.
No, for sure. I really appreciate it. Actually, a mutual friend of ours and somebody who visited the podcast on episode 4, Melly, set us up. And yeah, I've been listening to all your podcasts. And man, let me tell you, you get real on some of these things. And yeah, so I think you're the perfect guest today to just have this conversation.
Oh, thank you. I
Y-
appreciate it. That's I
Yeah.
kind of personally get a little self-conscious because I like to go deep.
Mhm.
Not everybody wants that, and you have to kind of feel that out. But I appreciate that it's appreciated.
No, for sure. And then I think let's just get right into it. So, where were you when you first saw or heard about what's going on? And like, kind of, what was your reaction right afterwards?
To be honest, it was weird. It was social media for sure. Don't even know the time. And to be honest, it was weird because it happened pretty much in real time tandem with the whole Amy Cooper situation in New
Yeah.
York. So that was like the Central Park situation, and this is happening in Minneapolis. Now, like we just had Breonna Taylor, we just had Ahmaud Arbery. So like to be and we're in the middle of a pandemic, and like we're Asian American, we're dealing with all kinds of racist nonsense. So yeah, it's all kind of blurred, to be honest. I don't recall where I was, what I was doing. I just remember I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
And it's kind of this like, is this really happening? Are these two separate incidents? Because it was really happening in real time, like being announced and it was Memorial Day weekend. And then
Hmm.
on top of the fact that everyone's being, excuse me, I'll just say, but like being really stupid and being all out,
Yeah.
being masked, all this stuff. I was already in a specific state of mind of like, really? And it just, I don't know, it was really bad. What about you?
Yeah, so I was actually on a conference call, and I was just scrolling through Instagram because I actually pushed a ad notification to my phone, and the first thing was one of my friends that posted about it, and then I'm like, oh, what is this? And then like I went to ad, and then like 10 minutes later when I got back on Instagram and like really looked and then looked at the hashtag and everything that was going on, I was my first reaction was unfortunately something like this. It was, guess it happened again. And like, and I don't like that as a reaction. My reaction should have been like, I can't believe I'm seeing this because I dreamt this in a movie. But instead my reaction was, here we go again. Here's another example. And the reason why I wanted to start off with that question is I want the gravity of things like this to happen more than just what is playing out in social media. And what I mean by that is, when you ask someone what 9/11 happened, everybody has that frame of reference, right? But I don't think, like, when Colin Kaepernick, you heard that news or whatever it was, I don't think people like register it. It's more like, I want to tweet about it, I want to think about it. But I think we all need to take that moment and have something like that to say like, this is wrong, this is serious, and we need to take advantage of it, and it's not good enough. So that's one point of view. And how I wanted to take this form and time is just asking you, as somebody who's vocal about this space, like, what do you think is the dialogue that needs to happen?
I mean, there's a lot of prescriptive things that happen with racism, right? Like, I personally, it's just as a human being, I've struggled with the word should a lot. And that's something that I dive into in my podcast because as an Asian American woman, I've had a lot of different authorities in my life, whether that be my father or society or religion or whatever, dictate to me what I ought and ought not do. My natural tendency to hearing the word should is I guess, inherently rebellious, like, why? Says who?
No, I love it.
And I think maybe that's maybe an ongoing, consistent feeling that a lot of Asian Americans have because there's such a like high level of propriety and so many societal rules. And I'm not saying we're the exclusively, but in our culture, there's like a shared experience of these shoulds. And so when it comes to racism, in general, people like take this prescriptive approach, and there's all this should. You should do this. You should do that. Again, I go back to the question on whose authority, because everyone has their should. And I think maybe a good way to approach it that I've been experiencing is just to share my own experience and let that be enough to like start a conversation. Yeah. Versus starting externally and being like, well, we should do this and you should do this and I should do this. Like, there's no should. Like, I kind of want to recognize that at the top. Like,
no, I love it.
I don't, based on what authority and based on what data is there like a should. We're all just trying to deal with this really, really tough, huge, long-standing, awful, like soul-crushing thing that's been going on since forever, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I don't know. I just kind of want to put that out there because that's a word that rubs me the wrong way. I don't know how helpful it is because that starts arguments. Yeah. And maybe the conversation is just like, this is what I feel. This is what I've experienced.
Mm-hmm. No, I it's a good learning moment for me, and not that, like, you're right. Like me, I've been told all my life from my dad what I should be doing or should not be doing. And I think Asian Americans more than any other race probably understand that. Maybe, and I'm also starting to realize, so Jewish moms and Asian moms are like literally the same people. So a lot of shared experiences there, but you're absolutely right. I think like, the prescriptive approach in any kind of setting, whether it's corporate, personal, it starts off in a combative way a little bit where it doesn't need to be, right? And that's not usually the connotation, but in any kind of charge, it can get there. So I think you're absolutely right. And, how I feel about this situation, like I said, is I can't believe it. I'm like desensitized because I like expecting this type of news subconsciously, but that's not okay. So, the conversation that, I would like to have with you is kind of like for the Asian American community, right? Like, here's one point of view, and I'm a little bit new to the Asian American community, if that makes sense, because I've just moved back to LA. I haven't been around a lot of Asian Americans. I went to a school where I was literally like the only Asian American not in med school program, right? So it's in that culture. And to me, I haven't been the direct, how do you say it, recipient of racism in my life, but I've always witnessed it because all my friends are multicultural to a degree, and I've seen that, and I'm like, wow, you guys go through a lot of shit, and I'm just sitting here doing me, and my racism is, you must be smart because you're Asian. I'm like, well, that's a good type of racism, and that's the thing I'm getting. So anyways, to you, and I would love to hear your view because you've been in the scene and seeing things. Like, what are some of the racism that you've experienced in your life, and something that you think is a positive and additive to this conversation right now?
In terms of my experience with racism, I am a California girl. I was born and raised in the Bay Area, and you'd think again. I think there's so many strata, like there's so many ways to slice and dice this one subject. But I grew up, in the Bay Area in the 80s and 90s, so it's kind of like what era was that, right? And that was like post LA riots. Again, as a child, I had no idea any of that happened, but
Mm-hmm.
that was the ripple effect up in NorCal, which isn't that far from LA, and what was happening in the national level too, because that had really huge cultural implications. I experienced racism in a very subtle way, just like being singled out for being Asian, but I also grew up around a lot of other Asian Americans. So then
Yeah.
it dilutes the hurt, I guess, because it's just normalized, right? And so I lived through the Asian pride time. Like a lot of Asian Americans
Mm-hmm.
will know that, not everybody, but in some well-populated parts like the coast and stuff, there was this like heyday of Asian pride. And there was music and graphics and Zanga and like all these other
Yeah. Yeah.
elements
Yeah.
that unified this identity. And I feel like it was kind of that first wave with also like K-pop at that time. So it's like all these cultural influences. But then I moved to Pleasanton, which is really, really Caucasian. That is a lot more diverse now, but at the time was like 98% white. And that was my cultural shock as a 13-year-old in the Asian Pride era. To like come face to face with my otherness, really, in like a
Mm-hmm.
more overt way. And that was a lot to digest. But I mean, it's like the rest of my life. It's something that shaped me. I appreciate it because I learned a lot, but it was definitely uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And some of it was the positive stuff, just like, oh, you're really smart, certain assumptions that now we can like put a label to as the model minority myth.
Yeah.
But I've also dealt with negative racism, and even from internally, like between Asians, like between Koreans and Japanese and Chinese and Vietnamese and Filipino and Indian. Like there's a lot of ethnicities under that umbrella term.
Yeah.
So, it's been intra racism, it's been externalized. Most of it, I don't feel like it's been violent except for the fact that I got harassed a lot. I lived in Europe a couple times,
Mm-hmm.
and studying abroad and stuff. I got harassed every day, being konnichiwa and
Ah.
Ching Chong
Yeah. Yeah.
around the world. That's been great. But it comparatively speaking, being in America, I've also watched the Black community go through what they've gone through. So comparatively speaking, I felt like whatever anger that I've experienced or whatever resentment, it ought to be minimal. It should be minimal.
Mm-hmm.
So like there's all of that too. Just kind of like contextualizing your own racism
Yeah.
as an Asian American. It's been a lot.
No, I actually really appreciate you saying that because I don't feel like a lot of Asian Americans have been on the recipient end of racism. And I think now they're getting more aware of what's going on. I think like when I think it was like an Asian woman in New York got thrown acid, and I think like when our president started calling it a Chinese virus, and I think there was a lot of reaction to it when people are out in public or when you're wearing a mask or not, which is like a whole separate subject. But I think overall, as an Asian community, it seems like, at least from everything that I've been seeing, and sorry, it looks like my dog wants to get into the live stream. Nutmeg, hi. Hi, Nutmeg. Do you want to get into the live stream? No? Do you want to be a podcaster? Okay, you're giving me kisses on. We're live right now. We're live right now, sweetie. Okay, so anyways, what I wanted to say on there was I really appreciate that point of view, and what you're saying is like, hey, whatever we're going through, this is a small fragment of what they go through, and they is a really bad pronoun here, but what everybody else goes through, right? And I think understanding that and understanding that we're all human and what we should be doing, and to your point, should is kind of what I'm saying but not what I'm prescribing to people, is context, knowing that other people go through it. It's a human thing. This is not a racism, this is a human thing. And that's I think I kind of actually want to segue into that, and I saw it on one of your podcasts. It's like you were, I think, and I might butchering the story up a little bit, you were on set and giving direction to people, and because you were the girl, everybody was going to the male counterpart to be like, hey, what should we be doing? And they're like doing exactly what you tell. Can you walk through a little bit of the sexism? And I'll share my story with sexism that I've dealt with in advertising when I was in like big meetings with clients and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, these are stories. That's why I love Nutmeg. I'm obsessed with that. And I hate when people use that word. I'm obsessed, but your dog's freaking cute.
Yeah.
But sexism in Asian America, in our community, having been very deeply embedded in it for over a decade, it's very real. I don't think it's conscious, but it's kind of like I just call it out because it is what it is. I have less anger about it, but it's still been mad annoying to experience, just to have, in my opinion, as much substance, if not more substance or experience or value to provide a conversation, an event, that I have a title and a certain level of like responsibility and authority, and then people still will like disregard what I say.
Mm.
And it's very subtle, and sometimes you feel like you're crazy. You're like, did that just happen? It goes back to this weird attitude of like, am I the one making a big deal out of this?
Yeah.
Or is this objectively wrong? Is this like a messed up scenario, or am I making it? That fact alone, that second guessing and that self-doubt alone is a very frustrating way to exist in the world, that what you have experienced is suddenly always under question.
Yeah.
So I'll just say that's my little like, it's what I've experienced. It's been very frustrating, but also like the conversation has evolved so much, and because of that, I think there's a lot more sense of allyship within my male counterparts to recognize a certain level of privilege that they have, even though a lot of Asian males feel so powerless and emasculated, which on that level I have witnessed, firsthand too. I'm not saying like, oh, Asian guys have it so easy. No way. It's like, it's been very difficult for Asian men. I have two brothers, father, and, I've dated guys. Like, I've seen it with my two eyes my whole life. It's this really weird existence of, in this scenario, you have all the authority, and in this scenario with these people, you are powerless. And as people, all people are experiencing the same things. But when it comes to race, I don't know. I've been told to my face by Asian guys that like my life is easier. That
Oh, stop it.
Yeah, they're like, you Asian women have it easier. I've been chastised for like who I've been attracted to. This wasn't even like, I've been told that I'm not helping Asian men because I've dated white guys.
Oh,
Not exclusively, mind you, but like it's been weird. So there's a lot of conversation. At the end of the day, these are really personal experiences, and like they're comfortable conversations, but they fascinate me too. So I'm like, okay, let's talk about it.
No, I'm floored that people think that way. Like, what are you doing to the Asian population for liking another? I don't know that, but here's the thing. I've always been floored when I have real conversations, especially with females, is those type of things. I guarantee, well, maybe not guarantee, but majority of the people probably don't even realize they were doing it in that context. Some people literally have, but it's almost worse, I think, if they didn't know that they were going that way. And I think, the things that I've seen a lot, and I've always been lucky to be very client facing in advertising and be able to recommend plans, but that's not all my doing. It's the entire team's doing, right? I'm just a vocal representative who can answer some of the questions. But when they have the opportunity to present females in rooms, I hate when the male client goes to look at me and ask the question as if she's just a vocal piece on the team and I did all the work, right? And I can only answer the question. And I would say, oh no, this is something that Sarah can answer or something like that. But I've seen that happen, and I gotta ask you, as a female, how do you deal with that bullshit? Like, I had a very hard time in one-on-one sometimes when like, it's like, I'm over apologizing, but I feel like I'm over apologizing in the wrong way. I have to feel like I should be combating with my client and educating, except they're my client. So, it's like, how do you deal with that? Like, as a female, and I'm sure you have so many more stories, but like in general, like, how have you grown from it, and how have you contextualized everything and be sane through all of it?
Meditation.
Got it. I'm glad it wasn't booze.
I mean, like for me in my 30s right now, personally, like, this is what I talk a lot about my podcast, is like recognizing the root causes, a lot of different mental health issues that I've endured that I haven't properly kind of identified in my life. Recognizing how that has ripple effect on my personal relationships. So like mental health is a very big thing. I have had a lot of anger. I have a lot of joy too. I'm a very happy person, but I also like, as an actor, it's good that I'm easily accessible to my to rage.
Yeah.
And understanding where that comes from, though. I didn't roll out of bed and want to just be like an angry person for funsies. Like, I just had nothing else to do. But processing why all those things happen, honestly, one of the key people in the ways that I've dealt with it is my brother. My brother is a hero of mine. He is a very three-dimensional, crazy, flawed, smart person himself. And having him as a person that I can vent to, but he genuinely asks me too. And like, he cares about me as my brother. Asking me like, why are you so mad? Like, what? And not in a condescending, like, dude, why are you so mad? Like, get over it. It's like, why are you angry? Like, why are you angry? And being able to unpack that is being able to identify things. Like, I've been in rooms where like, I don't get taken seriously. Like, I know the answer. They don't ask me, you know? And it's not that like, I feel entitled to being asked. It's because I want to help. And I've done a lot of work to glean enough information to be of value, to be of service, and then to be completely looked over is very frustrating for reasons that are completely, in my opinion, ridiculous, because you have some sort of like subconscious sexism going on in your head. We're not advancing in an efficient manner because you don't think to ask me when I'm the one that's been doing this work for 10 years and you're asking this person because he's your bro and you get whiskey with him on occasion. Like that level of like that those facts have been sinking in more and more. So yeah, I don't know. It's an ongoing process, but even the fact that I'm having this conversation with you, that you care to ask, that we are talking about it on a live stream is immensely therapeutic. And I've had to honestly do a lot of internal work of like forgiveness and also forgiving myself. And then in those situations with as much confidence and grace as possible, I have more, gumption to like insert myself now. So, and I don't, because to me, I want the message to be received. I've had to even like temper the way that I go because it's so fueled by real emotions, to be really aggressive. It can happen, and I see it happen. I see other people do it, but I just try to insert myself in a helpful way, but in a clear way, in a confident way. I'm not perfect at it. You have to read the room. And you're like, well,
no, the reading the room thing is so spot on. There have been times where I'm like, oh wait, I need to not be this funny Tony, right? And I need to not do that right now, or like make a joke of this. Like reading the room is absolutely a thing. Let's segue into kind of your podcast, because this type of real conversations and the user therapeutic, which kind of cued my notes here, which is you've said multiple times in your podcast, like, I love this. Like, this is therapeutic. I'm getting shit out. I'm figuring things out. Like, so you're 100+ episodes into your podcast, right? So what made you keep going, and give me the inspiration? I want to get to 100 too. Like, what do I got to do to like keep going in that momentum?
Tony, you're on your way. Hello. You're past the 10% mark with this one. So that's dope. I love that at number 11. I think that number is really dope. What kept me going? Random messages from listeners who, like, definitely from friends, but there's a little bit of extra like oomph that you get from a stranger. Just like, yo, I stumbled across your content and it really spoke to me. I've definitely just remembered times in my life where I felt really alone. I went through some tough stuff as a teenager, as a lot of teenagers do. Mine was a very colorful, intense moment of pain and darkness. And I do remember even like the random blogs that I would read. Like, I read Zanga things. Shout out to Kelly Chow, who's my friend Andrew Chow, Boba Guys. It's his wife. I used to read her blog in college. And this was when I was really isolated and alone. And I remember just like hearing about her life, her thoughts on school, or her thoughts on dating. Like, it genuinely gave me something to look forward to, something to entertain me, and something to kind of aspire to. I was like, wow, she's a really cool, like, smart, well-spoken person. I kind of want to be like her. Things like that exist, and I remember how that made me feel and how that made me get through some really rough spots. So when I hear that kind of feedback or get some sort of validation, again, I'm not in any way getting Joe Rogan numbers right here, right? So my measurements of success have changed, but just knowing that like someone appreciates it and that it's helpful to me, kind of have to look at all these things. I'm not making tons of money or anything like this off of my podcast, but if it's of value, which is something I identified as being something I want to do in life, is create things of value for other people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for myself, then do it. So you'll get there. I mean, you're on your way. It's a really fun process, and it's very challenging to like put yourself out there.
Yeah, no, I've never had so less sleep. It reminds me when, because I'm working a full-time job and doing this, and it reminds me of when I first started the college newspaper and just, pushing out 4 published articles and fully edited videos by myself and competing with the student newspaper of a staff of 30 and trying to push more content than what they're doing. And like, it reminded me of that time and hustle. And I absolutely love hearing stories like yours and just talking to people and just like learning, right? Like people, I don't think underestimate the fact that every single time I invite a guest, I am actively learning. Like what you said, should, and that word of the connotation and the gravity that brings, trust me, I'm going to be thinking about that a lot, and I'll probably catch myself using it in multiple situations. But the other part I want to transition to is you're not just a podcaster, you're also an actor and producer. So just let me know, how is it being an Asian American woman in this space? And yeah, I mean, you're one of the few, right? Like, you got to feel some kind of pride in being one, and kind of like pushing our culture and just Asian women in general forward, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, people, it's, again, attitude and perspective do a lot. There's people who could look at the otherness as being a big minus. And there's definitely times where I felt that. And I'm like, oh, I'm alone. Like, I don't have other people, No, I'm like, right now, I'm like, I love it. And by no means do I want to stay a minority. I'm like, yo, let's do it. The more confident, the more centered I am as a person, the less competitive in that way of like, I'm the only one who can have this slice of pie. I have other peers around me who are so dope, and they've put this great analogy, like grow the pie. Grow the pie. You don't need to fight over this tiny slice. And that's something I really seen change in Asian America. There's still a lot of intra competition, which totally gets so old and petty. And it's like, it's just, honestly, I feel like it's holding all of us back. But I'm seeing a lot of solidarity through hard moments like right now with racism, of people seeing past it. So there are silver linings to all the bullshit. If we choose to. So for me, I'm like, I look at someone like Nina Yang Bon Jovi, who is an amazing producer. She works with Ryan Coogler and Forrest Whitaker. I look up to both of them. They're incredible creatives. And I'm like, yo, in any way I can be associated in the same category as her, that's amazing. I have not done any kind of body of work near her, but it's something I aspire to. And I'm so grateful for that. She didn't have that kind of role model. But it's the same thing we can do to like, just, again, grow the pie, be an inspiration. It's not only just to Asian American women, but certainly Asian American women, because we all have substantial, amazing, beautiful stories, and we can be a catalyst for other stories to get told too. And those stories are the thing, in my opinion, that make huge impacts. If we're talking data wise, like the amount of time, if you could create a show or a movie or a song, something that really speaks to someone's heart, you're doing something miraculous, in my opinion. You're getting to the core of who they are. So it's not just like sound bites and data and stats. You're like changing their soul, and that's powerful. So it's not to take away from all the other jobs out there. I'm not trying to glorify Hollywood, but that's that I love and that I want to make a difference in. So, Geronimo, here we go. I don't know.
No, I love it, because the phrase that I use is not the pie one, but I say I want to have the tallest building, but I do not want to knock other buildings down in that process. And what I love about, and you're right, there's so much intra-competition in the Asian community. And it's like, I think our parents' generation was so in that, where rankings and like which school somebody went to, and all these little subtle things that just added up to everybody always having to one up each other no matter what, and putting people down in the process. And I think that earlier I've seen a lot of that carry over. And you're right. I think there has been improvements in that. We're still by far no way there, but I don't get the need of trying to be head honcho by knocking everybody down. Like, would you even feel proud if that happened? Is kind of the counter that I would say to those people, is like, wouldn't you be more proud if you did it all together and you're still up there? Or in the same way, everybody's growing at the same time. Like, I don't know what's wrong with that, but I think that mindset is so crucial for just the growth. And me also kind of like being on the other side of it, because if people produce movies or TV shows, right, I'm on the one doing advertising for it. My bucket list is one day to be able to work on like Crazy Rich Asians or something that has like Asian Americans that I can bring to the bigger screen in a positive way. Like that is totally something that I want to do, because it's just a passion of mine. So I'm gonna keep grinding until I get that one day opportunity, so I can say like I was the person to work on this, and I want to be proud of it. So yeah, I definitely know what you're saying. I definitely don't want to be at the top by myself. I want to grow with everybody together.
That's awesome, Tony. And trust me, this is like, thank you to Melly, but
Yeah.
you know, I see you, and I got, you know, I'm doing the best to make the most out of quarantine, and again, the meditation, like the self-care, so that I can still get up and feel motivated to create things, is very real. And no matter what, I mean, we're in a really crazy situation right now. There's a lot. So by no means am I like demanding too much of myself or anybody else, but I do also encourage people to remember that we're very resilient. Like at the end of the day, I'm always amazed. That's the you know, 1 or 2% optimism that I majority lean on. We're incredibly resilient. You can back people against the wall, but they'll figure out a way to like rise above that. I think we're all capable of that, especially if you have a good heart and vested intentions. It sucks right now. There's no denying it. But at the end of the day, I think we can create, whether it's art or conversations like this, that's our reaction, that's our response to that hardship. Then like we're gonna be okay.
Yeah, no, and I love it, and I think that's a good way to conclude the stream, because all the 3 people that are on right now, a bunch of people that commented, I hope this dialogue and conversation, it can end on that positive note. I think we are all very resilient. We're all good human beings at the core, and I think we should have harder conversations. We should look at all things in a positive way and feel that, there we go, me using should again. So I think it's part of my lexicon that I want to be more mindful of. But
I'll say to like the should thing, the brain hack that has changed my life about the should is people want to do things that they like. We don't want to do things that we should do. You should eat vegetables, and you should drink water, and you should wear sunscreen. You should do all these things. Doesn't mean we do it. I do things that I like to do. So for me, I've been replacing as much as possible should with like, and saying like, I would like to have more conversations. I would like to be healthier. I would like to be more open, blah, 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 blah. Like that is, maybe it's like a brain hack to help you do the thing that you like.
Yeah, I'm going to do it. Also, I wanted to ask you, is there a nonprofit or something that you're very passionate about? Because what I want to do is, I've been doing these bonus things on my live streams. So I really appreciate you coming on and talking some real stuff that, you know, quite frankly, you could have been like, like maybe I don't want to go there, but from the little that I've listened to you on podcasts, I feel like, no, she wants to go deeper and shit like this. So I want to donate $100 to whatever cause that you feel passionate about, as long and because I've been doing this thing, if we get 15 plus more shares, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to be from your podcast and mine and co-donate. So nominate one, and then I'll just put that in the comments, and hopefully people can get more awareness, because I want this conversation to be heard by more people.
Thank you. Well, and for me, it's an easy one. It's collaboration. It's,
there we go.
Given me a lot of everything that I talk about and what I've learned. And honestly, what's brought me here to you, Melly, I know through the Asian American community, which was through collaboration. And I want us to be able to survive another 20 years.
Yeah.
Because nonprofit work ain't easy. But
it's definitely not.
Yeah.
It's definitely not. Well, I appreciate everything you're doing. I appreciate the real conversation. Thank you for being on the stream, because to your point, like, podcast usually doesn't require videos. I put on makeup for this, and you know, like, appreciate you giving up your morning to be able to do that.
It was so much fun, Tony. Thank you. I'm really, really honored, and this is great. And FYI to everybody and all my friends, because I'm going to share this. Tony's going to be on my podcast. We're going to chop it up more, because we only started this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Minji, thank you, and have a good one.
Thank you too.
Bye.
Bye.